Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Daredevil Season 3, which is the newest entry into the Netflix Marvel Cinematic Universe. Taking place after the events of The Defenders, in which Matt Murdock was believed dead by his friends, he returns in this season, recovering from his battle and questioning if he should continue as Daredevil. Meanwhile, a plot begins to unfold which affects him, his friends, and all of New York. Matt must decide if he should return to action, and when he does, if he should finally break the one rule that could change things forever. Now, I've been a big fan of Daredevil since Season 1. In my opinion, it's the best of the Netflix MCU shows, and it kicked off this Defenders section of the universe. Both of the previous seasons were pretty great, although both had their flaws. Season 1, for example, was pretty derivative of Arrow, while Season 2 interjected the Hand and Elektra into a story that seemed like it mostly should have focused on Daredevil versus Punisher. You can also check out my review for Season 2 in the description and in the card here. But overall, I'd say that these two still raise the bar pretty high and are among the best seasons of any of the Marvel shows. So going into Season 3, I had some high expectations. And upon watching it, I'd have to say that this could not only be the best season of Daredevil, but of all the Marvel shows. Now, this review is going to contain spoilers for Season 3, so if you haven't seen it yet and plan to, you can come back after it's over. But without further ado, let's get into this review. So the story of the season follows Matt Murdock, as I said before, while he's covering from the end of the Defenders. Elektra is believed dead, and Matt is badly injured. So much of the beginning of this season focuses on his recovery, not only of his body, but of his mind. During this time, Matt is trying to get back into shape, but also questioning if he should be Daredevil and if God has any place in his life. This recovery happens in a church, and he's being aided by Father Lantum from the previous seasons, as well as a nun, Sister Maggie, both of whom raised him after his father's murder. The season brings many of the religious themes of prior seasons to the forefront, as Matt is having a question of faith, which makes some sense after everything he's been through. And Charlie Cox does a great job bringing this internal battle to life, giving likely his best performance thus far. This becomes an even bigger factor when Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, begins making moves in prison and cuts a deal with the FBI to inform on other crime organizations. Vincent D'Onofrio returns as the Kingpin, and he's once again excellent. He brings out such a great portrayal of the character in this arc, and he has a lot to work with. In this season, we see Kingpin is placed into a difficult position when the FBI threatened to indict his fiancée Vanessa on charges related to his crimes, and as a result, Fisk decides to cooperate. Throughout the season, we see what extreme lengths Fisk is willing to go to in order to protect Vanessa, not only helping the FBI bring down other mobs around New York, but indulging in his own violent acts. However, being the master manipulator that he is, we find out that the Kingpin has an even grander plan up his sleeve, slowly buying off people within the prison and the FBI itself, using them to take out rival organizations so that he can take everything over. And he doesn't care who gets in his way or what he has to do to execute his plan. This is what leads to tensions between he and Daredevil when Fisk is eventually set free and his crimes are overturned, leading Matt to question if he should stop with the half measures and finally step over the line to take Kingpin's life. However, another key player in this is an FBI agent named Poindexter, played by Wilson Bethel, who becomes Fisk's right-hand man and someone who carries out his will. As many comic book fans may know, Poindexter is none other than the classic Daredevil villain Bullseye, and this season does a great job of setting him up. Throughout the arc, we learn about his time as a child, how he was always accurate at baseball and in general. However, due to his upbringing and being an orphan much like Daredevil, he lacked the ability to relate to other people and would act out violently. We saw this as he killed his baseball coach, and then as he met with a therapist who taught him how to better fit in and empathize. These traits continue into this season, however, as Kingpin sees his skills in action and manipulates Dex into killing for him. And Dex has no reservations about who he kills or where, even at one point coming to Matt's church, killing multiple people, and then even Father Lantum, which was a pretty chilling scene. However, all of this is a part of Fisk's plan to turn the world against Daredevil, as Dex wears a Daredevil suit while doing this. And with that suit combined with his skills, he's a very formidable opponent for Matt. There's a number of parallels between Dex and Fisk, as well as Dex and Matt, and this makes things all the more interesting when they finally collide in the finale. Another new character character introduced in Season 3 is FBI agent Nadeem, played by Jay Ali. When we're first introduced to Nadeem, his character is a struggling husband and father who is having money issues due to a family illness. He's also unable to move up in his position in the FBI. However, after he is given an assignment to talk to Fisk in prison, everything changes when Fisk agrees to cut a deal. However, he soon discovers that he's in over his head. Slowly throughout this season, we see as he is co-opted by Fisk and the corrupted FBI to do his dirty work, which he does to protect his family. However, after a superior is killed by Fisk's men, and he's blackmailed over it, and then after seeing what terrible actions Dex is committing that he's an accomplice to, he decides to work with Matt to try to bring down Fisk. However, his story is a tragic one as he's killed. Fortunately, as it was revealed in a twist, he was able to record a final declaration which leads to Fisk being taken down once again. I could tell something bad was going to happen with this character due to how his story was set up, but I think this season did a good job handling it. The same can be said for the story of Karen Page, who is once again played by Deborah Ann Wall. In this season, we see how she and Foggy have been struggling since Matt's assumed death at the end of The Defenders. As Fisk is released, both decide to work to bring him down, even after Matt returns to try to tell them not to. Karen's story follows as she tries to get evidence for her paper and the police that will help bring about another court case to indict Fisk. However, it's during this that she makes a mistake, and Kingpin finds out she was the one who killed Wesley, which leads to him sending Dex after her, which may have been a little contrived, but led to some interesting developments. During the season, we also find out what happened to her in her past, specifically how she used to have a problem with drugs and a dealer boyfriend. One night, her brother shows up and torches the dealer's van, leading to him being beaten badly. Then, as Karen is trying to bring him to the hospital, she gets into a car crash which ends up killing him. After this, her involvement is covered up and her father tells her to leave and she never sees him again. It's a pretty tragic story that's very realistic and something I wasn't quite expecting, but it was in line with her character, and some bad events from her past have been hinted about in previous seasons. And as I mentioned before, Foggy returns and is once again played by Eldon Henson, and he's always been one of the most likable characters in the Marvel shows. Funny enough, in this season, he uses that likability to run for the office of District Attorney in order to bring down Fisk. However, when Fisk blackmails his family, this becomes a big problem, as Kingpin could potentially control the DA too. Another big thing he struggles with throughout the season, in addition to trying to help Matt, is the question of if the system works. Like in the other seasons, Foggy is the one most opposed to Matt killing someone, but this position becomes even more difficult to hold as the season goes along. However, as those who have seen this season know, during the final episode, Matt has the opportunity to kill Kingpin. However, he once again decides against it. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who wish that he simply would kill some of these villains. After all, they do provide a threat as long as they're alive, and this is why so many people have been a fan of the Punisher in the past, because he rarely spares anyone. However, as was shown in the previous season, Daredevil isn't that kind of hero. He's much more like Batman, someone who realizes that by not killing, they are preventing themselves from going past the point of no return. Not killing their enemy is something that defines them, whether it be by a sense of justice or faith. So as Matt tells Kingpin, he won't let him win and he won't let him break him. However, Matt does threaten to go after Vanessa, which we see throughout the season is Fisk's biggest weakness. Although her hands aren't exactly clean during this season either, as she embraces the life of crime and supports what Fisk does, which is something that I like to see, and I figured that it would go in this direction. And honestly, because I've been a fan of Kingpin as a villain in D'Onofrio's portrayal, I'm happy to see him survive the season. It gives him a lot more opportunities to do even more in the future. But of course, this is an action-based comic book series, so I have to talk about the action sequences. And I'm happy to say that once again, they pull off some incredible action sequences. The choreography, cinematography, and overall execution during these fight scenes is top-notch, especially the prison scene from episode 4, which is an extended take fight scene and escape scene which may be the best sequence in the entire series. It reminded me of the escape sequence from True Detective Season 1, which was also incredible. Now, I've seen most of the best action movies ever made, including some amazing Asian action movies like The Raid, Oldboy, and Man from Nowhere, which Daredevil definitely takes some inspiration from. And some of these action sequences in Daredevil can hold their own alone with those movies. That's just how good they are. So if you're coming to the show just for the action, you're definitely going to get your subscription's worth there. I can only imagine how good the other series would have been if they had this level of action, although I suspect that they used a large portion of that budget on this series, and that's why there's such a disparity. Now, as for the cons with the season, there are a few here and there. For example, I feel that many may find the first few episodes a little slow. It does take a little longer to get going than the previous 2 seasons, which had some insane action sequences right off the bat. But speaking of bats, this was a lot more reminiscent of a movie like The Dark Knight Rises, where the first few episodes mostly focus on Matt finding the strength to become Daredevil once again, much like how Bruce Wayne needed to work to become Batman again. So I didn't really have that much of a problem with any of this. I would rather have character development and strong build up to the action than non-stop action and fast-paced plot movement right away. Although this does lead into another con of mine, which is that I would have liked to see Matt wearing his Daredevil suit, because unfortunately during the season we never see him wear it. Instead, he's back to wearing his original black outfit from season 1 for all of season 3. Now I know that some people didn't like the look of his red costume, and the different versions had been criticized since they were introduced, but I still feel like he should have worn that iconic suit for at least the finale. They even had the perfect opportunity for him to have another one made, or to take back the suit from Poindexter, however it never happens. And speaking of Dex, we never once see him wear his iconic Bullseye outfit during the season, nor do they even really call him Bullseye. We do see him have a Bullseye hat on when he's a kid playing baseball, however he only ever wears a Daredevil suit, which I think is a missed opportunity. I almost expected him to show up at the end having spray painted the suit to make it more of his iconic suit, but that never happened. Although there is a setup at the end of this season for him to be the villain of the next season, so that could be why they held back here. Also, I would have liked to see some cameos from the other Defenders in this season. There are some minor characters who appear during it, but we never see Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, or the Punisher. I know there's the whole situation with Luke Cage and Iron Fist being cancelled recently, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't have crossed over here even in minor appearances. After all, the Hulk hasn't had his own standalone movie since 2008, and yet he's in several other MCU movies. And I'm not so sure that those series are really cancelled as much as the characters are being repurposed either into their own team-up show like Heroes for Hire, or simply being pulled and placed onto the new Disney streaming service. I think that both season 2s of Iron Fist and Luke Cage made some improvements, so I would definitely like to see those characters come back again. Either way, this story was more focused on Daredevil and his personal villains, so you could argue that the Defenders didn't necessarily have a place here. It still would have been nice to see somebody like Turk show up though. Another thing I was on the fence about was the twist where they revealed that Sister Maggie, who had helped raise Matt, was actually his mother. I know that it was in the comics, but I'm not a big fan of the long-lost mother cliche, although I do think that it was mostly handled well here, unlike in Jessica Jones season 2 for example, where I didn't really like the twist that much at all. The way that Matt finds out is a little weird though, because he overhears her praying and saying that she's his mother. This is a little too convenient, especially after they established that Matt can hear from the basement, but I don't think it really took away from the story, and how she ended up where she was pretty interesting. So overall, Daredevil season 3 was an awesome season. Not only did it live up to my expectations, but it exceeded them. I was a little concerned after Jessica Jones season 2 and the Defenders, but Daredevil showed once again why it's the best of the Marvel Netflix series, and I honestly think that this may have been the best season yet. The first 4 or 5 episodes of season 2 were pretty incredible, but it didn't necessarily maintain its quality as well as season 3. It may not be perfect, but it's a great season that I highly recommend checking out. I'm going to give Daredevil season 3 a 9 out of 10. So that was Daredevil season 3. Have you seen it yet? And if so, where do you rank it among the other Marvel shows? Let me know down below. And if you're new to this channel, then make sure to subscribe and enable notifications so that you can see all of my videos right away when they come out. And if you like this video, then make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, the blind gains of the Daredevil are incredible. I want to pose off against him and the Kingpin of Gains in the future.